Welcome to another edition of the Dementia Care Partner Talk Show. Now, here's dementia care expert Teepa and your host, Greg Phelps.
Hello and welcome to the Dementia Care Partners podcast. I'm your host, Greg Phelps. Joining me once again is dementia care expert Teepa Snow. And Teepa, I recently came across a piece on childhood dementia. Now, I was shocked. I do a lot of reading, and this was the first I'd heard of it. Now, neither of us are doctors, but what do you know about this? I know that it's about 1 in every 2,900 children.
It's called juvenile dementia, and it can be a genetically linked condition. I mean, there are some that are straight out genetics, and it has to do with an abnormal gene pool. And the kids can start reversing development in the womb at a very young age when they hit like 6 to 8, when they're in their adolescence, and they reverse or they speed up their aging process. But there are other conditions that are, for instance, developmental disabilities that can result in a childhood dementia, a juvenile. There are some that, as the brain and the spinal cord are developing, they start developing some chemical abnormalities, and they end up with a dementia that comes about as part of uterine development. And then we have things like, I don't know if I know you're old enough, Rye syndrome was a form of, we gave aspirin to children when they were really young. And it turned out that there's certain subset of kids, if they get aspirin, females particularly, who have a very extreme reaction to it, and they start developing a dementia. And so they lose communication skills, they lose movement skills, they start self-abusing. They lose speech, they lose the ability to control their bodies. They lose eye contact. So all the things that children develop, the children start reversing relatively quickly. And then there are other ones. I mean, there's Lewy body that some children start developing quite young if it runs in families, and it can be genetically linked. And it's really, these families are so isolated and so poorly supported and so poorly understood, because at first everybody's like, well, you must not be doing the program, because if you were doing the rehab program, your kid would be getting better, or at least stabilizing, and they're getting worse. So what are you not doing? It's like, I'm doing everything you asked. It's not working. Because for the longest time, it will be missed and misidentified. And families are devastated, as you can well imagine.
There are many things that we are faced to deal with in life where there is no better. And so there are these different types of dementia. There are others that you've dealt with that, again, but none of us are getting out of this alive, which is, I think, what is one of the hard things for us to face when we're doing programs like this, when you're talking to individual clients, etc. Sometimes there is no better.
Except being heard and being listened to and sharing what's happening and having somebody hear what's happening and saying, all right, so it sounds like you've tried this and you've done this. I wonder what would happen. And we look at our puzzle pieces. I mean, are there any puzzle pieces we could do something different with? Because when you keep doing the same thing you're doing, it's not working. Okay, well, that's not working. Let's back up and let's pause and let's see what we can explore, because otherwise you leave someone with nothing but hopeless and helpless and until it's over. This is what, and it's like, well, let's relook, let's rethink, let's try something else. Okay, they can't stand light. All right, well, let's figure out, what if you use red light? Because sometimes wavelength matters. So finding people who are willing to explore with you when you are in this really miserable space and nobody understands and believes, like, well, no, that's not, it can't be dementia. Children don't get dementia. Raising awareness sometimes is a starting place. So when you say it, people go, whoa, wow. So what kind of support do you have, or do you need some? Because if I spend time with you, maybe I could figure out how to give you a break by supporting.
The average GP probably hasn't seen a lot of these types of dementias that we're now experiencing. Now, are there more dementias? Are there more brain changes now than there used to be, or have we just
It's
discovered
a really good
them?
question. Greg. I think we help more babies survive that might not have survived historically. We're more careful. We notice things more. I mean, certainly in rural communities, I know back when I was young, um, hydrocephalus was not something people just had big heads, and some of them got great big heads back in rural communities. I mean, it's like, wow, that kid, until it gets horrible, people didn't notice, and the child would be like in their early teens, and that's when it would be, oh, so this is gonna like result in their death. I mean, they're now in a crib and they can't move, and it was like a surprise because for the longest time it was just he was just slow. And it's like, well, no, he has a condition that we could have treated and done something about if we had figured it out early on. But in this case, I wouldn't say ignorance was bliss. I would say, we have a lot of areas now where we know things that we didn't know before. So quality of life can change for a period of time, but I can't change outcome. But maybe quality and time available might change.
Teepa, is there anybody that you can recommend to talk to if people have questions? Who can they direct them to?
Yeah, I mean, we have some team members, and probably what we would do is we would do an initial quick sort of pickup on, ooh, you have an unusual situation, and more than likely you'd be referred to one of our more skillful and experienced folks who have a healthcare background, and maybe some pediatric background as well. Or we have people in our network that we could recommend because of their pediatric and maybe sensory integrative backgrounds to develop something that might be helpful with you.
Teepa, thank you very much.
Absolutely.
You've been listening to the Dementia Care Partners podcast, brought to you by Positive Approach to Care. For more information, go to teepasnow.com.